If you look out there, the best delivery drivers who've been doing their job for 5, 10, 15 years will refuse to use current navigation solutions because they know better, right? And so this is actually also the magic, because we can capture their best-in-class knowledge about how to deliver, digitize that, and make that available.
Today on the Lobster Talks, I'm joined by Ingo Boegemann, the co-founder of Truemetrics, the YC startup fixing the last meters of delivery. You've all heard of last mile delivery. What about the last meter delivery? You know that moment where Google Maps says you've arrived, but actually you just look around and you don't know where you are? Well, for drivers and delivery people, that's a huge problem, and Truemetrics turns that chaos into precision, saving giants like GLS 32 seconds per delivery. And of course, if you multiply that by millions of deliveries per week, per month, it really starts to add up. So that's precisely what we're gonna dive into today. Ingo, thank you so much for being here, for coming on the show.
Gabriel, thanks so much for having me.
I'm excited to get started on this. So first of all, let's start with, tell us how you came up with this idea. Were you yourself delivering packages on the curb and just looking for your way? What's the genesis of the project?
I'll be honest, I have to admit, we did it the wrong way around. Everybody tells you should not do it. The technology was there first, and then came the product, and then came the startup. Before Truemetrics, so I'm an engineer by training. I'm actually a mechanical engineer by training, very German, and I'd specialized in product development processes. And I was working in tech consulting with big European corporates, your Renault, Siemens, Volkswagen, whatever, helping them to restructure their products. And I'd done that for almost a decade. And at the end of it, with my own little consulting company. But at some point, me and my business partner were like, okay, this consulting deal is getting a bit old. Let's do something different. Both decided to quit it and sold the company to a competitor out of Scandinavia. And at the time, I was spending some time in southern France by the Atlantic Ocean coast, supporting this merger, and spending a whole bunch of time surfing. And for some reason, I don't know why, but for some reason, one day I asked myself, could I use all of the sensors that are, in a modern day smartphone to accurately record and retrace the three-dimensional path of a surfer on a wave? And so I took my phone, put it in a waterproof pouch, literally duct taped it to the nose of my surfboard, and recorded data. And I took that data back to Berlin with me, and then got deep into the weeds of what you would call sensor fusion algorithms. So putting together data from different sensors to get the best possible estimate about the state of a system, being position, orientation, velocity. And built this all the way up to the point where it's like, okay, this is a working prototype, and thought, now what? And then started thinking about, okay, what could we do with this? And I mean, up to that point, I hadn't thought about a startup, but then started exploring the space a little bit, and tried to find people that would be interested in working with me on it. Found my first co-founder, Jan, at the time, who's our CTO now. And we actually did take our first steps in the use case of adventure sports, skiing, snowboarding, surfing. And I remember those pitch decks from back in the days. There was always the last slide that would say, and also, by the way, this is also going to be fantastic for industrial use cases, like automotive, mobility sharing, etc. But I thought back then, hey, before we can use this in industry, it needs to work perfectly. So it's better to start in fun cases, like adventure sports, which turned out to be wrong. There's like no money to be made in adventure sports. And yes, you can start in industry before having things perfect. And so at some point we're like, okay, let's try these industries, and started reaching out to mobility sharing, logistics, and by means of that started porting this technology into the space where it's solving problems now. So not quite the way you'd expect that we got here, but this is the journey.
That's really cool. I love it. Take me back to the beginnings. Oh, actually, before we keep going, please, if you're watching this, hit the subscribe button. We drop a new episode weekly with top YC founders telling you their stories. If you're on your favorite podcast platform, subscribe, give us a 5-star review, and check out my solo channel. This is the channel where I'm always talking to fascinating people, but I also have a solo channel. You can just search for Gabriel Jarrison in YouTube. Thank you. I almost forgot. I always forget to do this. So I have a note here. So, okay, let's keep going. Take me back to really the beginnings where you realized, so, there's the surf experiment and the sports, but then you realize, okay, we're going to do this in the street. When did you realize that Google Maps was basically lying to couriers or guiding them, but only up until a point, but not doing the end of the job? What was the spark there?
That's an interesting one. When did we realize that Google Maps wasn't doing the job? Actually, if I think of our customers, they don't even consider using Google Maps for different reasons. I think if you think of cases where companies do tens of millions of deliveries per month, Google Maps is not really a cost-effective solution. It's quite expensive. So they tend to build up their own data stores of address and location data. And also Google Maps, at least when we started, they had no information about entrances. They would just like take you somewhere and then you're on your own. And I guess if you live in a European city especially, but it's the same in America, you quickly realize that a generic geocode for an address is just the starting point. And behind that starting point often lie multiple buildings, a large number of units, maybe 2-3 courtyards that get you to the door where you actually need to deliver.
I was expecting something else, but yeah, that's obviously the address is not enough. It's a great segue into a question I wanted to ask you another time, but so I'll ask you now. You're clearly European. You're a YC company. You've spent a lot of time here in the US. Is your product working both in Europe and in the US? But also, what are the differences? I'm thinking maybe there's none. An address is an address, and there's many doors, so you don't know it. But
Yeah,
maybe there are. So what are the differences?
yeah, yeah, fair enough. So most of our customers right now are in Europe. We have large parcel delivery companies in Germany, in Poland, in Switzerland, in the UK. We have one customer in Qatar, in Doha, who's like one of these super apps that does grocery and food delivery. And those are a bit different, but let's look at the European ones. The European use case is definitely portable to North America. We focused on Europe so far because it is an advantage if you sell to B2B enterprise, if you have boots on the ground. Our sales processes take a long time, and we basically sit on the customer's lap for weeks on end to really make sure they get something that works for them. And it's just easier to do that if you're on site. And we do want to make first steps into North America now to also show to the world, hey, we've shown this works in Europe. We've shown this works in North America as well. But I'll point out a difference between Europe and North America that I've talked about a bit in the last couple of days because I talked to so many YC companies back here into the US, and that question came up a couple of times. I think our solution can do even more in North America. And the reason is the limitations in Europe due to privacy and GDPR laws. In Europe, we can give data up to the address level. So I have an address and I can tell you where the entrances are. But now let's say you have a multi-unit apartment complex that has 4 entrances. And I want to know, Gabriel, for you, which is the right entrance. So if I have the information we're delivering to you, I track the entrance. And here in North America, I could link that to your name or to an anonymized identifier that reflects you. In Europe, that is legally not possible, or we have not yet found a way to do that. So I think the value that can be gotten from a technology like ours is even greater in North America.
I want to double down on this conversation. I thought of maybe going into that direction, asking you all of these types of questions today, because I just had a LinkedIn post couple hours ago go pretty viral. By the way, I post daily on LinkedIn around VC and YC. So again, I'm doing a little advertisement. You can go on LinkedIn and follow me. But this one really, so every time I post around the difference between Europe and the US, every time it goes viral. And this post is the same. It's actually about a German founder who couldn't raise in Germany and then came to the US and raised, and the differences in investment. So you went through YC in 2023. It's probably the pivotal time, summer 23. So I think winter 23 was the first batch where they said, okay, we're going to stop having so many international startups and we're really going to double, triple down on US companies. So you're the second batch after that. You're obviously from Germany and so from Europe, and you chose to go back there. But what was, and I believe your co-founders are Germans as well.
Yeah.
But what, as you said, if you're in Europe, you can sell more easily in Europe. If you're in the US, you can sell more easily in the US. Obviously, the US market is bigger. It's easier to fundraise here. And so what's the thought process? And I'm just asking because, and yeah, I want to know your thought process and then YC's reaction, because it's exactly at the time where YC is saying, oh, we only want US-based founders. And you're like, oh, sorry, guys, we're going back to Germany. So what happened there? And it seems you're thinking of the US because you're saying right now it might be even a bigger use case. So, lots of questions to answer here.
Yeah, there's a few things in there. I think YC is pretty clear about that. They want everybody to come here. They're very outspoken. I'm talking to one of the partners tomorrow, and he'll say, I can guarantee you, he'll be like, Ingo, move here, do this here, and I get it. That's just how they tick. And if you think of startups growing, future rounds, you need to have customers in the United States to make that happen with US investors. And we definitely do want to move our business, or let's say we want to keep our European business and we want to start an American business. I think the European market for us is a good test case. Everything we learn there, we can take over here. And it also has advantages. While it is difficult to fundraise there, we can develop the product there at a fraction of the cost, right? If I think of a junior to mid-level engineer that works for us, I have to pay them triple the salary while being here, right?
And so what did you say when you were at YC? Did you say you were moving here and then you changed your mind, or did they know from the beginning?
No, I think we didn't even know. Like, actually, we did try, and we after YC, we basically tried to sell to both markets. We're just much more successful in Europe. And I think it was because we were there. And also, I'll tell you this, selling into the American market as a European company is difficult for two reasons. One reason, because you're not American. Americans, I think, just trust Americans more. That's fair. And the other reason, especially now, there's so much noise in outbound sales. If you are a CTO, COO of a company here, you'll get inbound from all over the world. While if I reach out to the CTO of DHL in Germany, who's a German-speaking person, and I send them a message in German, and maybe I can even link this back to some sort of connections that we have. Maybe we went to the same university. It's just an easier entry.
It's so interesting, this topic. I could probably do the entire episode on this. I'll try to move on to something else, but it's so interesting. I just literally hours ago, this morning, spoke with YC company in the current batch, 2 French founders, and pretty much the same thing. They have customers in France and they have 1 customer in the US. And so I asked the founder, I said, hey, you want to focus on the US market or the European market? And then she tells me, oh, we want to do both. And I sort of don't believe her. I mean, I believe that she wants that, but I don't know if she can go after the 2 markets. Something you said that's so interesting to me. You said you started by saying we want to move the business here to the US, and then you said actually we want to keep the business in Europe and we have to start a new business in the US. Those are 2 different businesses, and we all know you can't be successful with 2 businesses at once. So, but now you have sunk cost fallacy, where you have this business in Germany, you don't want to abandon it. And so
I don't know.
have
I don't
you
thought
of it that way?
No, I don't know if I agree.
Go ahead. That's okay. You're allowed to disagree. Please tell me.
You can't have 2 businesses at once. I think we can serve 2 markets at once. but we don't want to overextend ourselves right now, right? We don't have like the setup that we have right now allows us to sell well into Europe, allows us to deploy well into Europe. But then obviously one of the scaling levers will be extending into North America. And it's actually, if I look at the things that we really want to achieve now, is I sometimes call it a bridgehead customer, a customer here in North America that lets us prove the things that we do well in Europe, we can replicate them here.
Yeah. And it makes sense. It is pretty much the same thing. An address. Is it just an address? I need to prove more. Okay. Just on the playbook here. So you've been running the European playbook for 2 years. I'm sure I know there are many YC companies sort of hesitating between those two things. What do you think is the playbook? I know you're coming to SF regularly. Is one, you guys are looking to have 3 co-founders. Is 1 or 2 co-founders moving here full time, or like how what's the playbook?
Yeah. I can tell you. So I don't think this one is figured out yet, but I can tell you my dream scenario, just from a personal view. If we get to the point, when we get to the point of having a meaningful customer base here, being served by our operational US entity, then I would love to be here on site in the United States part-time. I love being in Berlin. I think it's great, and I think it's great for the dev team. But I also really, really enjoy being here. So sort of part-timing it, be that half-half or 1/3, 2/3. I think that would be great.
Okay, that's awesome. Let's move on to the next question I want to ask you, but it might
just coming back to that. It's like a topic that was like dear to you, and also I get this so much, right? I was just completely business unrelated. I was making a post on Instagram earlier for a couple of my friends because I have friends of mine here telling me, Ingo, come move to the Bay, why don't you? Because the lifestyle here suits me so well. Like I love surfing, I love the outdoors, I love the spirit. But at the same time, I also love Berlin.
There's no surfing in Berlin.
It's true. Yeah. It's a tricky one.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I'm fascinated by this concept because I'm European. I'm also from Paris, and I was in your shoes for so long. So now I've made the move and I'm here in SF. But for so long I was in between and unsure. And now I have a wife and kids, and of course you gotta bring everyone and convince everyone to move here. So it's not easy. But I'm fascinated by that because I recognize myself as well. For the longest time, I thought, well, what's so wrong with Europe? I mean, we're great. Like Germany, France, like they're pretty advanced countries, and people there, the developers can build stuff as well as in the US and etc. Right? So also I recognize myself, and also it's a topic that is interesting to so many people. Again, every time I post around this on LinkedIn, I go viral. Like every time. It's the one from today, from this morning or something, but it's probably the 4th or 5th this year that I post around the Europe-US differences, and every time it goes viral, it goes crazy because I've got, I guess, tons of connections both from Europe and from the US in my network. Anyway, so yeah, I wanted to move on to but of course, I mean, everyone, me included, will keep asking you the question until you move here. That's your destiny. Until you move here. If you don't, we'll ask you forever. We keep asking you forever.
I squarely put you in the supporter camp of Ingo can move to the Bay.
I think it's a safe bet, yes. So yeah, it might be completely unrelated, but maybe your answer to this new question might be, things are different in Europe on that aspect as well, and that's actually a good thing. So my question is around GLS. Big player. I'm guessing top 5, top 10 in Europe. How do you go and sign such a huge company when you're such a small startup? And especially in Europe, I'm guessing, I know it's easier in the US to just open doors, and it's not that easy in Europe. So yeah, how did you go about that?
Yeah, that's a good point. I think one of the reasons we can sell to these companies, same probably for DPD Switzerland, or we're just negotiating a deal with InPost now in Poland. All of these companies are big enterprises. And the reasons why we can do that is that we are offering somebody that nobody else is really offering. So we often come through sort of the path of the innovation department, um, which is good to open doors, but which can also be tricky because you're selling something that hasn't been purchased before. So there's not really a process or any experience for them how to buy this. And if you're coming through the innovation department, they'll have a budget to try stuff out, but they won't have the budget to fully deploy. So you need to find a way to quickly pull in the stakeholders that will really realize the return on invest, being operations typically, right? So while it's easy for us to open the door, moving the path from POC to pilot to actually full deployment, that's a tricky one with these big enterprises.
And that's probably the same US, Europe, doesn't change.
Yeah.
But it's good. Again, I thought, sort of going back to my obsession of Europe, US, I thought maybe it's harder to open doors in Europe. But what you're saying is very inspiring for any founder out there. If you have a true innovation, if you bring something that they don't have and they cannot get anywhere else, the door will open itself. And I've seen this time and time again. It's true.
Yeah.
I mean, something really unique opens the door.
And I think also our product is nice this way, because if you tell this to somebody, everybody's like, this makes so much sense, right? Right. If you think of, you sometimes see it here, you see it in Europe, if you're in the streets and you see this little post-it or printout that's next to a door, dear UPS driver, please, walk down there, ring that bell and deliver to
Call me,
right?
here's my cell, because otherwise you'll never figure it out.
Yeah, everybody knows this, so it's like a relatable problem.
Yeah, that's true. And it's, you said in Europe, but it's the same here. So let's go into sort of productizing data, the technology that you've built. So basically, you're analyzing sensor data from driver's phone. Tell us more how you do that. How do you take the raw data, the same that you took from your surfboard, and turn it into usable insights that you can actually sell?
Yeah, happy to. If at any point I get lost in too much tech, feel free to stop me. Like I carry the title of CEO at Truemetrics, but I'm really also an engineer at heart, so I love to nerd out about this stuff. But I'll try and keep it high level. So our customers, their drivers will have mobile devices on them. And in most cases, those are Android-based rugged devices that run software that they've built in-house. Let's call it delivery apps. And in these apps, they do stuff like navigation, but also scanning the parcels, marking stuff as delivered, getting the signature of the customer, whatever. And these Android-based devices will have the standard sensors on board that we need, being your GPS, GNSS sensor, but also accelerometer, gyroscope, magnetometer. So we give our customers a little SDK that they can put into their host app. And that SDK just basically sends those sensor data streams to our backend. And in our backend, we have a couple of layers. So we'll have a couple of ML models that just tell us, hey, is this driver walking, driving, or stationary right now? Is this driver in a vehicle, outside of a vehicle, in a building, general outdoors? And then these sort of predictions of the ML models we put into an algorithm that is trying to pattern match for a typical what we call delivery sequence, right? Because we're in an industrial use case and we know what we're looking for. We're looking for a delivery, and a delivery will be something like this. You drive somewhere, you park a vehicle, you get out of a vehicle, you walk towards a building, maybe you enter the building, maybe you spend some time inside, and then you walk back to the car. So now we've captured this, what we call a stop. And within the stop, we have certain events that we find interesting. Leaving the vehicle, returning to the vehicle, entering a building, exiting the building. And then for these sort of timestamps that we have, we start putting in other data around those timestamps to make assessments. Where's the most likely position that somebody parked? Where's the most likely position where somebody entered the building? So we use the position trace, we use map data, we use the time when the driver marked the delivery as delivered, we use all sorts of things to make an assessment of where that parking position, where that entrance position is, and also what time it took to finish this delivery and what the different segments were. And at the end of the day, we have, for these tens of thousands of deliveries of the customer, we have all these data points. We merge them with all the past data that we have, because often, of course, we've seen deliveries to a given address many times, so we can sort of merge it together to improve the data quality. And then we'll give our customers a big data dump. This is everything that you got from yesterday, so to say. and they will ingest that data into their systems because they all have, address and position databases that they use to supply their front-end apps. And then that data goes out to the drivers the next day when they deliver again. Sometimes it's really, let's say, hidden to the driver. It's just that the position where they get sent to improves. They use our parking position as a routing target. But sometimes the drivers also see it because all of a sudden now in their navigation app, they have a new little dot. Hey, this is the entrance that you need to go to.
That was not too,
really simple, isn't it?
Yeah, that was not too geeky. That's okay. That was fine. It's so fascinating. Basically, the models are sort of trying to guess where's the most likely that he parked and where's the most likely he needs to go.
It is statistical algorithms, yeah.
It's like an AI, an AI model or an LLM guessing the next word when it's generating the content for you.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, I'm the one who's getting too geeky and too much into the details. But what's the difference I can very easily imagine the difference in signal from driving and walking. It's not the same speed, the same acceleration, simple. What's the difference from being outside a building and inside a building? Isn't it exactly the same sensor, a guy holding a phone walking?
Yeah, there's a couple of indicators that tell the model, hey, I think now you switch from outdoors to indoors. One of the most obvious ones that most people guess is that the quality of your position signal decreases, right?
I don't
see the sky anymore. That's definitely important.
Check this, right?
Yeah. Another one is as you pass through the frame of a door, you might see a spike in magnetic field intensity, right?
You get this as well?
Yeah. In most phones you'll have a magnetometer. Yeah. And then also
a lot of tricks. That's very cool. I love it.
Yeah, it's sort of machine learning models. You just give them the sensors and then you train them. And at the end of the day, it's actually kind of hard to see why they decide a certain way. But we can look at our feature set and see like which features these models really like to look at. And another one might be a motion pattern as well. As I approach a door, I stand, and then I have that sort of acceleration when I push the door open and enter. And that can also be a trigger that gives the model a hint, hey.
Wow. That's so cool. I love the sort of small tricks. You see, I'm the one who's geeking out on the thing here. Okay. So it's all invisible to the courier except for maybe a notification. The question I wanted to ask you is, how do you make sure they use it? But it's invisible to them, right?
No, this is super tricky actually. Like, if I just improve the data that they have, it's invisible. But if I give them new data, like the building entrances, it actually, and this is a tricky one, it actually requires a change management at the customer side because we are impacting their processes. These delivery drivers need to know, hey, I get this new data and I can trust this new data. Because if you look out there, the best delivery drivers who've been doing their job for 5, 10, 15 years, they will refuse to use current navigation solutions because they know better, right? And so this is actually also the magic because we can capture their best-in-class knowledge about how to deliver, digitize that, and make that available for new couriers that are on these routes, right? But so these couriers need to be trained, but okay, this is the data that you're getting, and it's good, and you can trust it.
Wow. Okay. And you need to. What were some of your design decisions? Because it's an SDK that integrates into every app. So how are you either designing yourself the information or helping your customers sort of implement it literally in the UX UI to make sure people use it, they're not confused, to maximize utilization?
Yeah, I think it goes both ways. So with one customer in Switzerland, we actually said, hey, we want to get you value as quickly as possible. And we saw that their routing targets, on average, were off by more than 50 meters. So we said, okay, we can fix this quickly for you, but just using our parking position and replacing your current routing targets with our parking positions that drivers chose for a given address. So in this case, we basically just improve the quality of their data, right? Without anybody in the front-end app having to make any changes. And that was a decision to quickly get them the value. And this was also interesting because I'll probably get to this later, our sales process of like POC to pilot to, we quickly wanted to show hey, this helps, right? This changes stuff. Um,
Let's get into
and
the sales process.
yeah, I,
What's unique about it?
I won't say unique, but we really had to learn that this is the way it has to be with big customers. Um, we'll get in touch with the customer, and first we will do a proof of concept with them, where we let them try the technology and show them the potential in their processes without them having to do any tech integration, because that can be quite a hurdle if we tell them, hey, you need to implement something in your front end app, hey, you need to start ingesting new data in your backend. So the way we do this is we take our SDK, we put it in a standalone app, we go to 10 to 15 of their drivers, let them put the standalone app on their devices, just runs in the background. So we track 10 to 15 drivers throughout a week, and we have their IT department give us an export of their sort of delivery metadata, which deliveries were done at which time. We capture the stops, we sort of splice things together, and we can give them most of the insights they could get if they were fully integrated on that small data set. Obviously, it's like kind of a manual process, but it lets us show the value of our technology without them having to do any tech implementation. Um,
That's really cool. That's the answer to my next question,
mm,
which was, tell me about a decision that unlocked scale. So this just helps you to just, it's not, I mean, it's the result is scale, but it's basically a very smart selling technique to say, hey, let me
yeah,
show you the value without any tech
uh,
implementation, right? Yeah.
and it's funny, it's like one of the typical YC advices that you've probably heard many times, like do things that don't scale.
Yep.
Like this is something that doesn't scale. Like you can do this for many, but you can do this to get to know a customer, to let a customer experience your technology, to identify the return on invest potential the customer has, to get to know your champion, to get to know their organization, to learn how to sell to them. Um, that is the tool for it, right? And also, like we never do these POCs unpaid because
Oh, yeah.
we
That's
still
nice.
want the qualification, right?
That's a very good lesson for every
Mm.
founder out there. Never give away your stuff for free. That's just a typical mistake I see
Yeah, yeah.
happens so often. Speaking of those big players, where are you seeing those big logistics incumbents most vulnerable right now? What are they really fragile with?
Well, I think there's two things that I see. I think they're being put under pressure by customer expectations.
Oh yeah.
We all used to now ordering our food off DoorDash, GoPuff, Instacart, and being told, hey, this is going to be with you at exactly this point in time, and we can track our delivery and it gets to us. And I think this experience increases the expectations we have towards the parcel carriers,
Yeah,
right?
when it's GLS, it's like it's going to be delivered between 8 and 6 p.m. and just you don't know, and that's it.
And you don't know, and then I think we've all had this experience. And then you're even at home because it's your new MacBook or whatever. And you need to sign in Europe. You need to sign for a lot of parcels. I think here it
Yeah.
depends. And then you're waiting for You're waiting for your door to ring, and then you get a notification, dear customer, I couldn't reach you at home.
Yeah.
You can pick this up the next day somewhere, right?
Yep. That happens so many times. Ugh, it's
Yeah,
so awful.
yeah. And we're all so angry at the drivers, but this is also a specificity of this industry. They're just like the pressure is passed down, right? The parcel carrier is passing down the pressure to the subcontractor, who's passing down the pressure to the drivers, and then all of a sudden the driver has like 150 parcels. Realistically, you can only deliver 100, so the rest 50 just like go to a pickup store. Um,
That's
but
crazy.
yeah, yeah.
What? So
So
let's talk about this because, I mean, this is probably the thing that fills my wife with rage the most because you pay for delivery at home. If you go for pickup location, it's cheaper. It fills her with rage. So
yeah,
help me calm her down. But so really, what's the solution here? Is it something for Truemetrics to build? Because I'm like, it's a global, universal problem.
yeah. I think we need to help those drivers with Truemetrics, but we also need to get better operational visibility. You know, you'd be surprised by how manual a lot of the processes at these large parcel carriers are. These operations work because there's somebody there with a lot of experience who picks up the phone and sort of orchestrates things on a day-to-day basis. But that also makes it hard to really manage a quality goes down, right? And I think here we can also help with operational visibility. It's like a feature that we haven't deployed with anybody yet. It's a bit of a tricky one. We call it delivery compliance, because from our data, we can understand if a driver doesn't ever try to deliver at your place and says you're not there, right? So giving the drivers the tools they need to succeed, be fair with the burden that we put on them. Don't ask them to do things that are humanly impossible, but then also make it fair in the sense of that, good drivers get rewarded and bad drivers get punished.
Yeah, because sometimes you don't really like. Yeah, they call you and they pretend they don't hear you when you hear them, or like this. Yeah, there's bad behaviors as well. And again, it's because of the pressure. This question came up to my head when I was listening to you. Self-driving is sort of getting solved. I mean, it's working here in SF, and it's going to be translated probably all around the world, including for trucks, truck drivers. And I'm not talking delivery trucks. I'm talking like actual big trucks.
Yeah.
Right? So on paper, we can very easily see a world in a few years where the delivery truck with the packages drives up to your house. And then the second part is the human part, which is taking the right package in the trunk, ringing the doorbell, giving you your package. Do you think, not in 2 years, but in I don't know, 10, 15, 20 years, do you think it's all without humans? So it's a bunch of AI plus robots plus self-driving. Do you think we get there, or do you think it's too complex and we won't get there for a very, very long time?
Yeah. It's a tricky one. I think we're going to get there. And actually, you know what? I hope we're going to get there. And I think we can play a part in it. Because if you want a robot, whatever that robot looks like, to deliver to your door, they need really good data, right? Your human driver, he can ask the neighbor, hey, where's Gabriel? I can't find this. Robot is not going to do that. So I think here we can play a crucial role of basically generating that data, that mission data, that geospatial temporal mission data, from understanding what is happening in deliveries today and making that available to starting your first optimize, partially automate, fully automate deliveries in the future.
What came to mind is everyone says Tesla is going to win self-driving because they have the most data. Well, actually here Waymo in SF is doing quite well. But Tesla does have the most data because on every Tesla since day one, they're collecting the video footage and the data. And you're doing this exact playbook. You're collecting data already for 2 years. And whenever in 2037 or something, people want to build the fully integrated robot delivery, you'll be the company that has the biggest data set on that. So, if anyone from DHL or whatever, whoever is listening, this is the company you want to invest into, because you guys are going to own the entire data. But like, we live in a world of AI. AI has a bigger and bigger impact, and AI is trained on data, and you'll have the best, very best, biggest data set for that. Did you ever think of it this way in terms of completely autonomous delivery?
Yeah. Let me go beyond autonomous delivery. And this is a sort of, I wouldn't call it a fresh idea, but something that has been ping-ponging around my head the past couple of weeks. So we're out there and we're gathering what I call mission intelligence that tells people where to go to do their job better, right? Geospatial, temporal. But isn't there other mission intelligence to also tell them how to do their job better, right? What are other things that people are doing to succeed? And if we look past parcel delivery, right now we're in parcel, but we could also imagine that template being used in security, emergency services, elderly care, wherever you go somewhere to do something and then go to the next place, right? So I see a world where we could go past the sensors that we're using today and also capture interactions that these people have with technology to succeed in their job, and start logging that as well to, again, optimize, automate, fully automate some of these jobs in the future. And I was triggered on this topic again the other day. I was listening to an interview of Alexander Wang from Scale AI. It's like, hey, we've got these models and they've fully absorbed the internet, right? Now we're training them on synthetic data. There's no more data. We need to get new sources of data. And there's plenty of sources of data out there real world physical processes that are happening in the world every day where people are performing their jobs. And I think we can tap into that. And we're starting with geospatial, we're starting with parcel delivery, but I can see that expanding quite a bit.
Well, yeah, the sky's the limit. You're right, so much data. I mean, this data, we don't have time in this podcast, but this data problem is a big problem. And the two solutions are real world data and also synthetic data. Now there's synthetic data being created. That's a fascinating topic, but I digress. So you're a data company disguised as a delivery company.
We are a data company, yeah. And I think this is also our moat.
Yeah,
You
it
know,
is.
the AI race, especially here in SF, the speed is crazy. I talked to a couple of founders this week, and everybody is really stressed out because everything is moving so fast. You know, a new product comes out, it's copied immediately. And our slow moving sales processes to get integrated in these old school companies to finally start collecting data from their drivers, this is also a mode, right? You know, we're mapping these geos, we're mapping these processes, and we're building up something that's not immediately replicable.
Slow European mode. I
Well,
love it.
it's also going to be a slow American mode. You know, actually, one of my dream customers that I would love to work for and that I expect to be incredibly difficult is UPS. Um, I think UPS is still using for a large part. They're using these hand computers that the drivers are carrying around, these big things that are UPS self-developed systems with its own OS and software on it. It's going to be so hard to integrate Truemetrics on that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's all I can wish for you. Um, Before we end here, I like to go with the bold predictions and future bets. Um, and so I'll ask you a couple of questions and see where you can try to predict the future. So, what's in your opinion inevitable in logistics, but still sounds very contrarian today, maybe to outsiders or to people who are not into the field?
Yeah, I'll give you one. I'll give you a contrarian belief, but I'll be honest, like I can't say it's inevitable, but it's something that I see coming and that is unusual. So in this industry, we've seen outsourcing, outsourcing of risk and responsibility. You know, DoorDash is using subcontracted gig workers, and also in the big parcel industry, you know, all the postal workers used to be employed by the companies, and now they have like a subcontractor level, and the subcontractor is employing individual people who are their own little company, and sort of the risk is being pushed down further. And we've seen a reversal of that to an extent because it just breaks stuff in terms of quality, in terms of getting things right. And Here I really want to compliment one of the players in Europe, DPD Switzerland, who has a surprisingly large share of employed drivers, and that being in a country where the hourly wage is incredibly high, right? Because they see the value of having a highly skilled, highly loyal fleet of people that they want to enable with a good technology to do a good job to make sure that the customer at the end of the process is happy.
Yeah,
So maybe to
I
like
agree.
full
Sorry.
circle, going from outsourcing everything to bringing the drivers back into the fold, back into the parcel companies.
That's a very cool trend. I agree that outsourcing, that's what I've seen as well. It really leads into decrease in quality because there's no ownership. Um, has this been brought on or inspired by Amazon? Because I think Amazon has most of their drivers,
Mm,
delivery people in house.
it's a good question. And I think one of the things that we sort of talked about before, or thought about a little bit, is if we talk about pressure that's being put on the incumbents,
Mm.
and we talked about customer expectation, but another source of pressure is companies like Amazon, um, which to an extent may have more drivers employed, but they also own the vertical process, right? So Amazon can decide to let a driver drop a low value parcel in front of your door, even if it usually would require a signature. a company like UPS or DHL, they can't do that because if that gets lost, it's a big problem. If it gets lost for Amazon, they just resend it, right? Because they know what's in the package. They sort of own the goods. So they have an advantage there. Plus, I mean, Amazon is great with data. I think Amazon is trying to build a lot of the things that we're doing in-house. Love to sell to them. It's been hard. So that's one of the players that puts pressure on them. And the other one is parcel delivery startups. We're seeing a couple of players in the UK who are really trying to fulfill the expectations that we all have. On-time delivery, good quality, and they show that it is possible with employed drivers, with the right technology. Obviously, starting from high-density areas, right? So, London metropolitan area, we got a company like Hive that is incredibly successful, great customer satisfaction, and showing to these large players, hey, this can be done profitably in a fashion that is better for everybody.
May everyone else hear you, and may they succeed. We talked about startups. We talked about Amazon. I want to talk about Google because we sort of left them out. I think Google Maps is also building a lot of, I don't know if it's directly competing with you, but they're building a lot of street view and you can scan the buildings around you and it'll tell you where you are, like lots of features. And you said it's just not economically, it doesn't make economic sense. Aren't they trying to take market share? So they, instead of paying for their own system plus Truemetrics, you just pay for Google Maps. And I'm sure they're able, I know actually for a fact that they have big volume discounts because of course it's a huge volume of usage. Don't they actually sign any contracts in the delivery space?
I don't know anybody from the big companies that uses them, but I mean,
isn't that a big missed opportunity for them?
It's a tricky one. I think, just my perspective, I think we definitely have to be aware of Google Maps. And if I think of when we started, Google didn't have any entrance data. And now, if you zoom in on your Google Maps app, you'll see that the building might have a couple of entrances, right? Did I tell this story, or was it in the call before? I was just seeing a founder at Cenote for lunch the other day here on Market Street. And if you there's a Mexican restaurant. If you search them on Google, they will highlight the building and they will show the entrances on the building polygon. They show 6 entrances for the building, 4 of which do not exist.
Really?
None of which actually lead you to the restaurant. So they have a lot of data, but obviously the data quality suffers, right?
And it's not like in a remote country, it's in San Francisco.
This is San Francisco.
It should work.
yeah, definitely. And also, I think one advantage that we have is Google captures data from everybody for everything, right? We capture data from parcel delivery for parcel delivery, right? And your parcel delivery guy, he might actually deliver at the back of the building because that's where the warehousing is while you enter the front door of the building.
I was imagining you going around the Mexican restaurant, trying every fake entrance. Is like, that's a wall. There's nothing here. You go crazy.
I'm sort of used to this, right? I saw it on my Google Maps, and I screenshotted it. I wanted to do a LinkedIn post about it. I haven't gotten around to it because it's like such a typical case. Nonetheless, I think Google is a fantastic company, and we always have to keep an eye on them.
Yeah, for sure.
But maybe they also have to keep an eye on us.
I was going to say maybe they should acquire you. All right. Thank you so much. And before we wrap, where can listeners follow you, learn more about Truemetrics? If you want to share your website, your socials, let's go ahead and do that.
Yeah, definitely. You can check us out on Truemetrics.io, our website. It's a bit outdated by now, but it still shows you really nicely how the product works. And then the best way to get in touch with us is probably on LinkedIn, either with me personally or go to Truemetrics on LinkedIn, find us, reach out to us. That's the best way.
Okay, awesome. I guess it's time to update the website then. Time to do it again. All right. Well, thank you so much, Ingo, for coming on the show. I had a blast. That was great. I hope you did as well. And to our listeners, if you're still here, please consider subscribing to the channel. I drop a new episode every week with an amazing YC founder who takes you and me behind the scenes. If you're on YouTube, you can watch our beautiful faces, subscribe and hit the notification bell to be warned of the next video. If you're on your favorite podcast platform, please leave us a 5-star review. It really helps, and feel free to share with other people. It really helps, and feel free to share with, and see you next week.